Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 7th episode of What Are We Talking About?
7.
Wow.
Already? 7 times.
And will this be lucky number 7 for Mitch, where one of his ideas will finally get pulled? Find out today on What Are We Talking About?
This is going to be the most dramatic, bowl-pulling note idea segment ever.
But here's the problem that we're setting ourselves up for. What if my idea sucks? Right?
It's not going to suck.
It could.
It won't.
There's a couple of stinkers in there.
Do you put in bad ideas?
I mean, you never know, right? I mean, did you hear Ben's last topic? I thought that was never going to fill 30 minutes, but it did. We did.
We always manage.
Yeah, we figured it out.
And it usually starts
I've
with the theme music.
I guess that's right.
Wait, are you in a hurry? Are you trying to? Are you like? Do you have somewhere to go?
Do you
today?
want the
No,
theme music to play right
already?
now?
I'm trying to give us more time to talk about the topic of conversation.
Well, before we get into it,
we're never getting to it.
I just want to know, how was everybody's week?
Oh,
Happy to be back.
My week was good. It's
Yeah?
good to be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another day above ground.
Yeah.
This is like a fun little thing we do, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's a fun little thing.
No, I mean, okay. Let me back that up.
Soon it'll be a fun big thing.
Yeah. Here's a question: is Jen sort of getting frustrated with you doing this yet, or no?
No.
No.
She listened to it the other day on her own accord
Okay.
and came back and said the show is great.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
Tracy's an avid listener as well.
By the way, I don't know if Kristen's listened. I
Don't-
know if she
don't-
has.
Your kids
don't-
have.
don't
Yeah,
you-
but no,
the key
I
is
don't
you
know if they
can't,
have.
you can't ask her.
I know.
You can't ask.
Well,
Why not?
Can you have Jen ask her?
I can ask Jen to ask her.
Okay.
You
see
can't
that.
ask her, though, because once you ask, then it's pressure. Then they feel like they have to listen to it.
I think she has listened. I think she listened to the John Carpenter one, and I think she was really probably
Embarrassed.
frustrated and embarrassed with me. So then she decided.
That's kind of why I don't ask my family to watch my episodes of television.
Well, it's the old thing. Like even Brad Pitt can't get his kids to watch his movies because it's like I don't want to watch my dad in some movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like us being the celebrities that we are.
Celebrities.
The kids don't want to. They're not there. They're not on the same page.
Man, I wish I was a celebrity. I'm joking.
Well, you know what might make you a celebrity?
You know what? That's a transition.
Topic
Here we
in the
go.
bowl.
Do it.
Wait, but they don't even have the music.
I thought we already cued the music.
When did the music? We didn't even cue the music.
That's a really long teaser.
Did we cue the music?
Do it.
Go.
Did the music already happen?
I hope so.
All right.
Did it?
Let's do it now.
Okay, listen. Now that we're back, can you edit out when I said that my wife hasn't listened yet? Because I'm going to get some shit over
You
that.
don't want me to edit it out, do you?
Oh, I don't know. She might get really mad at me.
Maybe.
By the way, it's gonna up to her if we get to stay here because this is their house.
You know what? It's a good point. She could easily shut this thing down in 3 seconds.
Wait a second. Here, I think this is a good test. You've not had the conversation about whether or not, truly, is this true? Like, has she listened or not?
No, I'm joking. I don't think she's listened to all of them because we've done 7.
Which one?
Six.
Which
We've done
one do you?
6.
Okay, let's do this. Kristen, if you're listening to this, pause the podcast right now and lean over to Mitch if he's next to you, or go find him and say, "Hey, babe." Does she say babe?
Yeah.
Hey, babe. I just listened to the newest episode, and you should know that I've listened to all of them. Or if Kristen, if you've only listened to a few.
She's listened to a few. But now, as Ben said, wait, hold on. Have your kids listened?
No.
Yeah, my kids
No.
have not listened.
Me
to
neither.
anything.
And they don't
Yeah.
follow us on social media. We're
No.
on, where we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we are on Blue Sky, we're on Threads. None of my kids follow us.
Wait, we're still on Blue Sky? Are you sure
Still?
about that?
Yes.
All of it,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, we're on Blue Sky. I would like to know how many people on Blue Sky actually are doing anything, but we're on.
That's
Blue
just
Sky.
the running joke on Blue Sky.
On
I'm
Blue
sure.
Sky.
I'm sure they're fine.
I'm sure they're okay. You go to bed at night feeling pretty confident that Blue Sky is all right.
Yeah, I think they're good.
Okay.
I think they're good.
All right. So why don't we pitch this? This episode is the most dramatic idea pull from the Popcorn Bowl ever. We're going on the 7th episode where none of Mitch's ideas have been chosen. Will Mitch's idea be chosen? That's Mitch making a hand signal like do the sound of the bowl near the mic. He's
Make
a
sure
total,
you do it.
You're a total. This is an edit
You're
you would have
Foley
given
artist.
the people at the reality shows.
That's it,
to oversee.
yeah.
Okay. Will Mitch's idea be chosen from the bowl this week?
That's not creepy at all.
the most dramatic
pull ever.
All right, here we go. It's folded twice.
Oh, that tells me it's new.
Oh, there's two. Okay, what do I do?
Oh my God!
You have to pick one.
What do I do? One's in one hand, one's in the other.
Let me pick.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
My right hand or my left
So
hand?
your topic's fate is literally in your hands.
I say go with your right.
That's my right hand. Okay, I'm moving the bowl away.
Put down the bowl.
Opening. I gotta put on my glasses. I gotta put on glasses to read. This is
Just that
horrible. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know whose idea this is. It's not my idea, which means Mitch has a 50% chance.
It's not mine. There's no way, because my penmanship is so good. You would have looked at that and been like, well, that's definitely not Ben's.
Ben, does your handwriting, what do your M's look like?
Oh, man. Yeah, then that's definitely his.
Like M's.
Because you would know what mine looks like.
You know why I think this is Ben? I think this is Ben because it's very introspective.
This is bullshit.
Is moments that change the course of your life yours, Ben?
No, dude, that's mine.
What's up with your M?
Finally.
Dude, that's a beautiful penmanship.
That M is weird.
Let me see
It
that.
doesn't even look like. What is
It's
that?
an M, bro.
Is that an M? M's have like angles. That's
It's
like
an upside down W. That's all that is.
All right.
moments that change. We have broken the curse.
Oh my god.
It's like the curse of the Bambino.
See?
Yeah.
Lucky 7. I
Yeah.
called it.
I know.
Lucky number 7.
Yeah.
Talk to us, Mitch, about where this idea came from.
Well, I'll tell you, I was laying in bed this morning, and remember we talked about the idea that every 20 seconds, if I think of something, 20 seconds later it's gone, right?
Yeah.
So this morning I was sitting there because ideas pop in your head over the week, and you think about topics that you want to put into the bowl. And about 10 of them popped into my head this week. I lost all of them. Then this morning I'm sitting there and I remembered 2, and one of them was moments that changed my life, right?
All right.
And I was going to do 3 moments that changed my life because I was trying to think of different things, and I sort of landed on 3 of them. But then I was like, let's just keep it vague, right?
Yeah.
Keep it vague. And, I just think I think it's interesting, and I think it's interesting for me personally to think about my life, and maybe I'm getting a little bit older. I'm becoming a little bit more. I have a little bit more of a different perspective on my life and everything as I'm approaching 50 in a couple of months. And I think about different people who've come into my life and sort of sent me down a different path. My wife, different people that I've met along the way, and that's where I started thinking about. I could almost boil down a handful of moments that have sort of gotten me to where I am right now. And I just think I think that's an interesting sort of thought process to go down, if you will.
So is there a particular, a single moment that stands higher than all the others that had the most impact on you and your life?
Well, there's a couple. I think the first moment that I identified a couple of years ago was when I met my buddy Ted from Myrtle Beach, who I grew up with. Mm-hmm. And when I met him, I think we met when we were probably in 6th grade or something like that. But he was a dude who lived like a completely different life than I did. He was on the USA national surf team, so he traveled globally. He went to Australia. He went to other just faraway locations. And I mean, I'm talking about when he was, in 7th grade, he was like on a plane going to Australia surfing Bondi Beach or whatever the hell it's called. I think it's Bondi. Is it Bondi?
Bondi?
Yeah.
Bondi Beach?
Bondi Beach, yeah. But he was just a guy that sort of like lived a much bigger life than I felt like I lived, right? He was out there doing things, and that I remember when I met him, and it did sort of change the course of my life in a weird way. Like we became inseparable. We hung out all the time. We obviously grew up together. We sort of went our separate ways when we went to college. And then ultimately, when I moved out to LA, I moved out with him 5 years later.
Right.
But that moment when I met him when we were teenagers, it sort of opened up my world a little bit, if you will. Like his parents were different than my parents. Both parents were great, love them all, but they were different than they traveled the world, right? And I remember thinking like, oh, we don't really do that as much, but it was really cool, and it was one of those things that I remember thinking, if I look back on it, it probably opened up my world to a place where I would be willing to try different things and experience different things and maybe take more risk than I normally would have. And look, jump ahead a couple of years later when I moved to LA, that's all because of him. I came out here for spring break my senior year of college, visited him for a week. It was literally one of the best weeks of my life. We called it like a recruitment trip for me. And then a month later I moved out, and that was all because of him. And that's like, you can connect the dots. I don't meet you guys.
Right.
I don't have my kids, my wife, my job, everything. So
I'm always fascinated by that. You can take a moment, right? Like, by the way, like, you can take that moment of meeting him as the catalyst for you coming out here, this whole life that you have, right? But you can even go further back. Like, you can say to him, like, I don't know that moment of how you guys met or what allowed for him to be in that place. But there were people in his life who made decisions. Had they made different decisions, he may not have met you, and this all wouldn't have happened.
By the way, it's also, I remember the moment I met him. I remember I was riding my bike down the street. We lived in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
But there weren't a lot of kids in that neighborhood at all. I mean, we were like there were maybe 4 kids that lived in that neighborhood. It was like a residential area. And I was riding down the street. I had like a cut-off Clemson tank top on or some shit.
Were you wearing your Huskies?
Yeah. No, I was wearing shorts because it was hot and it was summer, but I was a little bit of a chubster still.
Okay.
So I'm wearing that. And can I say chubster? Am I going to get shit for saying chubster?
I don't know.
You're talking about yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
So
you can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself.
I say it.
You can body shame yourself.
I'm body shaming myself.
Yeah.
So I remember pulling up, and he would tell you the story if you ever talk to him. He remembers this. I pulled up, and we like locked eyes. I was like, "Hey, what's up?"
Sounds like a romantic moment.
I know it does, but it wasn't.
It is.
But we both looked at each other like, "Hey, what's up?" And like we sort of knew each other. We had played in like intramural football or like pee wee football.
Yeah.
But we never were on the same team. We played against each other, so we sort of knew each other. And then we just started hanging out, playing basketball, surfing, like all that stuff together from that moment on. But I remember the day and everything. It was one of that's what I'm saying. It's a weird connection like that.
That's amazing.
Let me ask you this, because I think that we all probably have super important moments like that that have changed the course of our lives. And then there's also a moment probably in your past where you did something or you made a decision or you made a mistake that is less significant, but I guess I'm just trying to ask you, like, is there a moment that's not as heavy or deep that also you said, I mean, you did something, you're like, hey, I'm never going to ride a unicycle again because of X. You know what I mean? Was there something? I'll give you an example. Let me just give you a unicycle. No. Well, I tried. I actually tried. There was when I was in junior high school, like you would be out at the at recess. I guess that's what they called it. And they had unicycles. Like, and there were these kids. There were some kids.
Did you go to a clown school?
No. But there were kids who were damn good at riding a unicycle. So for a while there, a lot of people were super interested in learning how to ride a unicycle. Anyways.
Wow.
Different from my pole vaulting days also. But here's, let me give you this one example.
Wait,
we're going to come back to the pole.
We'll come back to pole. Hardest thing ever. Anyways, here's a moment that happened for me that is not going to have the weight of yours, Mitch, but it actually really taught me a lesson. That's why I want to tell this story. So I was living in my apartment in Los Angeles before I got married, and it was a cold night, and I wanted to make s'mores. And I'm in an apartment, right? So like I don't have a fire. I just have a burner on the stove, whatever. But I get all the stuff at Jen's with me. I get all the stuff from the store. So I've got my marshmallows. I don't have those long sticks because we're not at a campfire. So I take a fork and I just put it into the marshmallow, and I'm roasting the marshmallow over the open flame. I've got my graham crackers and my chocolate. We're ready to go. Get a nice, super awesome glow, brown glow on that marshmallow.
Starting to caramelize.
It's starting to caramelize. It's like shaking, like it's going to come off. Perfect, right? I put it on my s'more, and then the caveman part of me looks at the metal fork, which still has remnants of marshmallow, and says, "Oh, marshmallow. Would love to taste that marshmallow." And then I proceed to put the fork into my mouth, on my tongue, which burns lines into my lips and my tongue as I'm trying to stupidly eat the marshmallow.
Oh, my God.
So that is a moment that will ever change my life.
That is a major turning point.
Because I will never, ever put a metal utensil that I've heated over the stove into my mouth.
I like that it was a learning experience.
It was
for
a
you
learning
in
experience
your
for me.
20s.
It wasn't.
Yeah, and
It wasn't in my. I think I was probably late 20s.
Were you not paying attention up until that
It
moment?
was a weird moment of like you know how sometimes, like, I think we all have dogs. Like, dogs as puppies, they just know, they have an instinct to go in circles and
Sure.
get their bed ready.
Right.
Whatever. There was an instinct inside of me that saw the marshmallow on the fork, and I was just wanted to taste it, and I didn't think logically about anything else.
That the implement had been heated to a
So,
point.
but I taught my kids, never put hot metal utensils that you've heated over the stove into your mouth because it will burn you.
Yeah.
I have other more
reference.
significant ideas, but I just wanted to call it one out as an example. To you, Mitch, is something like that also changed the course of your life? I'm not saying you put metal utensils that were heated into your mouth.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I don't know. I'm trying to think of.
Like, I'm never going to snowboard because I tried it once and I almost broke my back. Or,
Lord.
you know what I mean? Or never, on a first date, never do X.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never say to any dad of a person I'm dating, I'm past that at this point, it's nice weather we're having. Like, probably the worst thing you could say.
Well, I think Ben was there, but I think one thing that pops in my head, but it's an idiotic moment, was you should never deep fry a turkey in flip-flops. That's one thing.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
That's dangerous.
Why? What happened?
It was the first time we'd ever deep fried a turkey. Were you there? I think you were. We were up at that other house.
Yeah.
And
out on your deck, right?
out on the deck.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I put it in, and we had too much grease, and the bird was a little frozen, which is basically every YouTube video you see on Thanksgiving Day when the fire department shows up and has to put out the fire. And we dipped it, and it went in, but it boiled over, and I was wearing flip-flops, and it got all of my feet, and it's not
Like burned, deeply burned?
not
your
like
feet?
hospital burn, but it was bad. It was
Right.
not good.
Yeah. So that's
But yeah, but
that
I can
makes
still taste that turkey, by the way.
it's pretty good, right?
was it
What?
was all
Are
right?
you kidding me?
I don't like deep fried turkey.
Oh my god!
I know it's just not my jam.
Really?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I like a traditional bird.
All right. Well, so I don't feel as stupid
No.
about that story because
Right.
I mean, it's not like you put your head in the boiling oil because you wanted to warm up your face.
I think what we basically learned is that dogs are smarter than we are.
That is true.
Clearly.
Ben, is there any moments that stick out to you?
Not the turkey boiling, fork eating moments, but a moment that did change my life, obviously.
Yeah.
One that started out as a professional turn that became personal. My career began at Marvel Comics in the early 90s, and I started there as an intern and then eventually worked as an assistant editor, and was a childhood dream come true. And that all happened because in the early 90s, 1991 specifically, I was a junior in college, and there was rumors there was going to be an X-Men movie, and I was like, ooh, I'm the X-Men fan who is going to write that X-Men movie, not knowing anything of how Hollywood worked as I'm sitting there in Ann Arbor, Michigan, thinking, my screenplay is going to be the one that they're going to produce. But I wrote these two X-Men movies scripts that eventually got into the hands of this guy, Terry Stewart, who was the president of Marvel Comics at the time. And he was kind enough to take a meeting with me and just said, look, you obviously care about these characters. You're into what we make here. Would you like an internship? And I was out of college at that point, so they were generous enough to sort of pay me a small stipend for a few months, and with the understanding of you've got basically 3 or 4 months to prove yourself, and if somebody wants to hire you, then welcome aboard. I worked in the special projects department, which was trading cards and posters, and that was great. I mean, just to sort of be on the editorial floor where comic books were made.
It's huge.
And the company in the early 90s was growing and expanding at a rapid rate before it ultimately contracted a couple of years later. But there was an opportunity to get hired. People were getting promoted. Someone offered, the special projects department offered me a job as the assistant editor. And I was like, oh, cool. It's a real job, like my first big job out of college. Would have been awesome. But I wasn't that big into trading cards and posters at the time. Being around the comics, I was like, this is really what I want to do. And as I was sort of weighing the option of that offer, one of the comics editors, this guy Don Daly, who edited the Punisher comics, says, I'm about to promote my assistant. would you want to come and work on the comics? I was like, oh shit, yeah, I definitely want to work on comics. But I wasn't a huge Punisher fan. So I was like, okay, well, now I've got a choice. I can stay in special projects and posters, in cards and posters, or I can go into comics. I'm like, they're both great jobs, but neither one was really speaking to me on a personal level. And just as I was about to sort of make that call, Bob Harris, who was the editor of the X-Men, pulled me aside and said, listen, give me a week. I'm about to promote my assistant. Once I've done that, once that's approved, if you want to come on board, I want you to work in my office. And
That's
I'd
awesome.
been in the X-Men office, in and out of it, because we were doing a trading card set in that year. So I was the one who would go gather the reference for the artist. I knew, down to every page and panel of what issue to send them for, the best shots of the characters for reference. So clearly I knew what I was doing, and I knew those characters well. And Bob was kind enough to offer me that job, and I took it, and that was the beginning of a career. But then the personal side of it was that was early '94. Several months later, I was coming into work one day, and I used to ride my bike to work. I lived up on 83rd between 3rd and Lex in Manhattan, and the offices were on 28th and Park. So I would just ride up to Park Avenue. I'd ride all the way south to 28th, and without a helmet, which was stupid.
What?
I know, it was very foolish, but I loved it. I loved riding in Manhattan traffic and back in those days.
Quicksilver.
It was a little bit like Quicksilver, yeah, Kevin Bacon. Yeah. So one day I walk in, and I've got my bike on my shoulder, and there's these two women in the office. One of them was this woman, Pam Rutt, who was the publicist for Marvel, and Marvel kind of had three different floors at 387 Park Avenue South. There was the 10th floor, which was four floors. They had ninth. Ninth was production, 10th was editorial, 11th was like the financial department, and then 12 was the executive floor, the C-suite, I guess they would call it. And Pam was up on 12, and she was showing her new assistant around the office. And that new assistant was this very attractive young woman who, when I walked in, she said to me, "Oh," she's like, "Oh, have you met Ben? This is Bob's assistant." So her assistant said, "Did you ride that here?" And I was like,
"Oh, you're holding your bike."
I'm holding my bike. It's on my shoulder, and I was
Okay.
like, "Yeah." And that was the last moment of cool I ever had, because that woman is my wife Tracy, and that's where we met. And it was probably the most important turning point moment of my life was meeting her in that context. And she was the last person that I would have ever expected to work there, but she had chosen that job because it sounded interesting. Like,
Huh.
and as fate would have it, that moment began a journey that continues to this day. That was 94, so it's almost 30 years at that point.
Yeah.
It's
So, Mitch, should you and I feel bad that we have yet to tell stories about our wives?
I know. The only story I told was that she hasn't listened to the podcast. So that's not going to go.
And that
well.
wasn't even true.
I know.
That was just for entertainment purposes.
But it is like I think I do love that. I love that. I love that. Like when I look back on my life, I can sort of pinpoint those moments because I have a similar thing, and I can very quickly. But like I had moved out to Los Angeles. I'm living with Ted. I remember I was working production. I was a PA on set. I got home at like 9:30 at night. I remember it to this day. It was a Thursday. I was in the house by myself. Ted was out, and I get a call from my buddy Jerry, and he's like, "Hey, I met Kristen randomly. My wife, Kristen. I had met her.
Your third wife,
Yeah,
Kristen.
I had met Kristen like I want to say 5 months earlier, just randomly, but we didn't really connect in any we knew each other, but not well.
Right.
And I got a call from Jerry that Thursday night. I did not want to go out. I was exhausted, and he was like, "Hey, Kristen's here asking about you," and I was like, "Oh, okay." And by the way, you got to remember, Chubster hadn't had many women asking about him. So
By the way, regardless of Chubster or not, like a woman
Yes.
interested in you,
Sure.
that's a very
That
nice
was a-
feeling.
yeah.
Like,
She's
you get off your
asking.
ass.
she was asking about me, and Jerry was like, "Hey, you should get down here." So I took a shower. I went down. I think it was Coaches and Horses, if I've got that right.
Huh.
And I saw her, and the story goes, and Kristen would remember this, she had dyed her hair. So I didn't I didn't know.
You didn't
I
recognize
didn't
her?
recognize her as much.
What,
in
what
the,
color did she dye her hair?
She was now dark.
Oh.
She was blonde when I met her. If I have that correct, I believe that. Yeah, or it could be. Yeah, she was dark. So I saw her, and then I think I was like, wait a minute, and you dyed your hair, and then
And it looks great.
and it looks amazing.
Right.
And then like that was the night. And like had Jerry not called me, had I not picked up the phone, like, and I really mean this, like I don't know, because that was it. And from that moment on, we were pretty much inseparable from that night. And like that was it. And
Well, it's so we talk about like these tiny decisions that you make, right? Like, so my story, and it's a Jen story, but I was first here in LA. I was working at New Line Cinema as an assistant, which, by the way, funny story. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Mask with Jim Carrey.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's that really smart little dog.
You mean The Mask?
Was
Mask
it The
is
Mask?
very different.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's not the Eric
yeah.
Stoltz
Rocky,
share
it's not
movie.
Rocky Dennis, no.
Anyways, I just remember, but one of the things that's just super funny is the movie did so huge that the director, whoever owned the dog, it was like a little terrier, smart terrier in the movie. That dog had like babies, and they gave one of the babies to Bob Shea, the head of New Line Cinema. And we were in this building across from the Ivy on Robertson, the Pacific Theaters building, was like 6 floors. And they would let the dog, whose name was Venus, walk wherever she wanted so you'd get into the elevator and a dog would run into the elevator and you'd ride up, and the dog just had to go wherever. And I would always be sitting. I was lucky. I was one of the assistants that just by random chance I got a little office to sit in as an assistant. Most assistants didn't, so people were pissed that I had an office. But that dog would come into my office all the time and like fuck with me under the desk, and you couldn't do anything about it. But here's what's also crazy.
Was he still wearing the mask?
He was not wearing the mask.
Oh.
The this guy Steve Asbell, who's the head of Fox, who I just met recently, his job, we were at New Line the same time, and his job was to walk that dog.
Oh my God.
For Bob Shea. Anyways, that's the time of my life. I'm living with a bunch of friends, fraternity brothers, whatever. We're living in Beverly Hills. Every weekend we go to Westwood. We go to this place, Maloney's.
yeah,
Maloney's. Huge steins of beer. The amount of beer that I could drink and still wake up the next day was insane. And 2 girls who I didn't know approached me. They went to Pepperdine. And so they came up to me. I became friends with them. Didn't date any of them. They were friends with Jen. They would periodically bring Jen to parties that we were having. I must have met Jen 4 times before I actually remember, to your point, like that certain night where it was like, oh, wait, and then that connection. But had those 2 young women not come and talk to me at a bar in Westwood, would I have ever met her?
yeah.
I don't know. Clearly it changed the trajectory of my life
Yeah.
as well. Maybe not as significantly as putting a metal fork in my mouth, but still.
That's the thing, like with Tracy making the choice to work at Marvel Comics and become a junior publicist there, which
is crazy.
I mean, again, it for her, she did it because it sounded interesting.
Yeah.
She knew nothing about comics, wasn't into comics, and none of that, and was just like, sounds different than she was doing, like, I think trademark research or something,
Yeah.
and so this sounded like this could be a fun job, and next thing you know, we end up eventually becoming partners in life.
It's funny. Kristen tells a story that, you remember were you here for the Northridge earthquake?
I was in college in Orange County.
And you were still in New York, right? Yeah, you were still in New
yeah,
York.
we were in New York.
I wasn't here. But
What was that,
Kristen,
94?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it was a month and a half or so, or maybe a little bit longer after Kristen moved out. She tells this story, which is sort of in a similar vein of just moments that change everything. Her best friend, or one of her good friends from Vegas, was out here spending the night, staying with her for a couple of days. They were in their apartment. Northridge earthquake happens. Basically, their building is like crumbling as they're in it. They get out. Everybody's outside of their houses and condos and apartments and all this stuff. Everybody's sort of in the streets, just waiting to see what happens. Everybody's like sharing cell phones and all this stuff. Kristen got someone's cell phone, or I think actually the story goes everyone was using the car phone in her car to make calls to find out where everybody was.
Yeah.
And so she called her dad, and she was basically like, "I'm going to come home. Like, I don't have anywhere to live. This place is going to be condemned. I can't even really get back in to get my clothes. This is like an hour after it all happened, but she could tell, like, I can't get back in there, so I have nowhere to go." I'm going to come home. And her dad somehow said, if you come home, you're going to regret it. Don't come home. And she did not come home. And I guess when she tells it, and I know what she means, like she was going to basically move home and just, because like she had just graduated college. She had left behind a good job at the Wynn in Vegas. She could have probably gotten her old job back. Right. She sort of came out here on a whim just to see how it goes and see how, and they had moved her out. So it was a whole thing. It was a big move for her. But I think when that happened, her instinct was, I'm going to bolt. And her dad, stay here. And then, for the next, she's done really well. And
it's those sliding doors moments where it's like you could go either way, right? Yeah. And if you make that choice, your whole life is completely different.
But yet we can't live our life saying, I'm at an intersection right now, and do I go to Taco Bell or do I go home, and not knowing what the significance of either of the decisions will be.
Oh, I'm going to Taco Bell.
You're going to go to Taco Bell.
Every time. Every time. Literally every time.
Oh, my gosh. I have a friend from my college who's like one of the big wigs at Taco Bell now. Like he's in charge.
Wait a minute.
Listen,
hold on.
Why have we just learning this now?
Listen, he's in charge of every new Taco Bell that opens in the continental United States is under his purview. And we were going to we were on this kick lately going to Taco Bell. And I have a really great idea for what I call the 2-taco diet, which I'm going to talk about at a different time. But this is me. Like I messaged him and I was like, is there like a black card for Taco Bell where like you can just give it to me and I can go get Taco Bell whenever I want? And he didn't even respond. And I ran into another friend of ours at a party like 2 days later, and he was like, I heard he reached out to so-and-so to ask him for a black card from Taco Bell.
Wait, is this recently you did this?
Like in the last 2 months.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Okay, so Taco Bell. Now that we're on Taco Bell. As in life-changing moments.
Yeah.
Right?
So good connective tissue.
I don't know how you're going to connect this one, but let's do it.
No, I mean, listen, the first time I ever had Taco Bell was senior year of college. we had one in Ann Arbor, and I'd never had it before. And I went with my my roommates, and it was life changing for me. I even at our local bar they had a soft taco eating contest. I entered it. I didn't win, but I did get a lot of free tacos, and I ate the hell out of them.
Let me ask you this, because I think it's about the passage of time. When you were that age, how many soft tacos could you eat from Taco Bell in a sitting?
Oh, at least like five
minimum. It's like 5 to 10, right?
By the way, I could do 5 right
now. Yeah, I know. I mean, I still kind of do right now. I mean, like that's not if I don't eat the bean burritos, then yes, I can definitely do 5.
Okay. All right. See, for me, if we're talking about moments that changed our life tied to Mexican fast food restaurants, it would be Del Taco, because when I was in college, I found out that they had a 2-pound beef burrito. It was literally 2 pounds. Oh my God. And after an evening of partying, I could eat an entire 2-pound beef burrito and wake up fine the next day.
Oh my God.
Okay, biggest meal you've ever like. So is that like the biggest order you've ever had? Because that's
the most amount of food in any one sitting.
Like where the weight of it, and you can say, okay,
2 pounds.
I have no idea. I mean, not 2 pounds. I don't think.
You've never eaten 2 pounds of food?
I don't know. 2 pounds, that's a lot of food. Well, I probably have, but 2 pounds is a lot.
In my 20s, mid-20s, and Tracy can attest to this, I could do a 48-ounce prime rib.
Wow.
With dessert.
Ooh, that is rough.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I can taste it right now. It's so good.
Man.
Oh.
That is just clogging us up. Wait, real quick. We glossed over this, and I don't think we can gloss over it anymore.
All right.
Go back to the pole vaulting.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because that sounds like something that would be life-changing.
All it convinced me of was that I should. I didn't really start lifting weights at the gym till I was in college.
Okay,
this was high school. I was the skinny kid with no upper body muscles. Pole vaulting is all about the upper body. So it was like, hey, let's join track. The dude who's doing the radio station. That's cool. Let's find a way to get into sports. Again,
you sit on your ass most of the time. Why don't you start running?
Yeah, why don't you do something? And it was like, running is just so annoying. Like, I don't want to run. Well, how can we be on the track team? well, there's pole vaulting because, high jump was not going to be the thing.
Did they say it was pole vaulting?
They did not say it, but it would have been nice. But it's, I can just imagine if I was rewatching that moment today, who was watching these 2 or 3 friends try to use these huge poles and having no...
Wait, were you unsupervised?
They just let you practice with it. But
oh, my God.
I don't think I got over 9 feet hardly ever.
Did you clear 6 feet? I mean, that's still pretty cool.
Once or twice. It's very disconcerting. You're upside down. You'd get dizzy. Like, this is why I could never be like a NASA astronaut or any. It just is
Couldn't handle the G-force.
Just the equilibrium thing.
Yeah, I could never do that.
It was kind of it's funny now. It was kind of like, oh, you want to join track, and here's something that you're probably never going to be able to do, but I can still call it out. So there you go.
That's pretty good.
Well, that would change my life, I imagine.
I think these are all significant life-changing moments
that we've all lived through.
Yeah,
I think it gives people insight into just how inspiring our lives have been, and how Mexican food is indeed the cornerstone of who we are today.
Yeah.
So with that, I think it's worth saying this. We've now broken the curse of Mitch's ideas not being chosen.
Lucky number 7.
Who knows?
We might go on a run.
We may go on a run. It's going to be like in Moneyball, like the A's. How many shows in a row will Mitch's ideas be chosen?
Oh, that's right.
It's pretty
right.
good.
You could have turned the tide completely.
You may have very well turned the tide. I guess we will see as weeks go on. But until then, subscribe if you haven't. Join us. Tell your friends. Follow us on social. We are at WAWTACAST. Wadacast.
What are we talking about, Cast?
And with that, it's Paul.
It's Ben.
It's Mitch.
And that's what we're talking about.